Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of our Still in Pilot Current Affairs Taiwan.
Maybe we'll just stay in pilot indefinitely.
This is Donovan Smith, and I'm Michael Turton. Hope you enjoyed today's show, which is going to be all hand all the time.
All right. All right. So, should we kick off with dengue fever?
Dengue fever. No thanks, I don't want any of that stuff. So, this week saw Kuo-yu fighting with the central government over Kaohsiung's dengue fever outbreak. I think they have, 22 indigenous cases now?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, as of yesterday. So, Han has been claiming the central government hasn't supported him, and the central government's been like, be serious. But it's been making him look like he's flailing. He's not in control. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's fighting with people who should be helping him. Hasn't made him look good. So Su Zhensang, who's the premier and a DPP stalwart politician, sent down Chen Chi-mai to handle the dengue fever allocation to Kaohsiung, which was trolling Han Kuo-yu since Chen Chi-mai was the DPP candidate in the election that Han Kuo-yu won. So, what are the claims he was making? In addition to claiming that he had filed the paperwork or some nonsense like that he was yelling at the central government saying they'd given 20 billion to Taiwan after the earthquake a few years ago. But the executive union said, no, we only gave 3 billion. We had some draft bill for 20 billion, but of course that never happened. So this week has not been kind to Mr. Han Kuo-yu. And did you go to the rally on Saturday?
No, I didn't go. I was thinking of going, but...
So what happened at the rally? Did you hear?
Well, the big thing about the rally was the shows and the no-shows.
Who no-showed? Who was there?
Basically, in terms of big shots showing up from the KMT and inter-party people, pretty much no one showed up. That was kind of the big story. So here's who did not show up: Lu Xiuyan, the Taichung mayor; Wang Huimei, the Zhanghua commissioner; Lim Min-zhen, the Nantou commissioner; Yan-qing Biao.
Yan-qing Biao wasn't there?
Nope. And basically, pretty much everybody did not show up at his rally, with the exception of Nantou legislator Xu Shuhua and Jason Hu.
Jason Hu is the former mayor of Taichung before Lin Jialong. And Yan-qing Biao, you might know, is a man who's often accused of being an organized crime boss.
He's been convicted of it multiple times.
And
so you don't have to say alleged if you've actually been convicted.
I'm going to say alleged anyway, okay? But anyway, he's often alleged to be the island's biggest gangster. And he's a longtime KMT stalwart who actually left the party. He's now, but wasn't he part of the non-partisan?
Yeah.
Where they park people who are a little too corrupt for the KMT or something?
Yeah. He was a non-partisan solidarity
That's
union.
what it is, non-partisan. Yeah.
But his son, who after he was put in jail, his son then won the by-election over that seat. And his son is in the KMT because he hasn't actually been convicted of anything. So yeah, but the father has been in and out of jail in Qingbao quite a few times.
So Yan wasn't there, even though he was instrumental in organizing the factions for the Taichung area victory. Yeah. That's very interesting because Han's ascent was backed by local factions in Kaohsiung, organized by Jin-pyng. But anyway, the interesting thing about Jason Hu being there, was we were talking about before that, was that the element that you're not seeing in this election is Jason Hu was a huge star in the KMT, very popular politician, very good at politics, and suffered a stroke, and then what? He had heart surgery?
Open heart surgery.
Yeah. So his health issues have basically knocked him out of any possibility of ever being president. So what we're seeing now with the KMT is actually a result of that stroke.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Otherwise, he'd be the presidential contender right now.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking of presidential contenders, actually, we didn't go into the polls here.
The polls!
The polls, the polls, yes. So, Han Kuo-yu, so this was interesting. Now, again, let's put in the caveat, local polls pretty much are a bit dodgy, of course. But, check this out. This poll has, if they were to rerun the election, the local elections from late last year, the 2018 elections, this here has Lin Jialong winning with 46.6 to Lu Xiaoyan at 41.5. Then, down in Kaohsiung, we have Chen Chi-mai winning with 53.4% over Han Kuo-yu at 34.8%. Now, the other big six metropolises all would have remained the same.
Huge buyer's remorse.
Huge buyer's remorse. Now, assuming that those are correct numbers, but they're somewhat backed by the Commonwealth poll, which is usually pretty reliable, that we talked about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which showed both Lu Xiaoyan and Han Kuo-yu not doing very well in the popularity rankings. Lu was ranked the 20 out of all the cities and counties in Taiwan. She was number 21 out of 22. Wow. So Han Kuo-yu did a little better. He was in the middle of the pack, but he had very, very high unfavorables.
That kid at the rally the other day in Kaohsiung said it. It's ridiculous. And then Han pat him on the head. The kid told him it's ridiculous that you're running for mayor or running for president when you haven't even been the mayor yet.
Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of people are having that feeling.
Yes.
So what were we saying that before the show that Han probably realized that being 4 years of mayor in Kaohsiung is something he's not able to do.
Yeah.
And so the only way out is up. That's the feeling that I get from him sometimes when I listen to him talk.
Well, if he were to wait until the next election cycle, he wouldn't be as hot as he is now, obviously. Or has been, I should say. And, how would he fare with all those promises that he made, which were,
the Ferris wheel? Disney World?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know.
Huge Foxconn factory?
Yes. I think actually he did get a promise for an investment from Foxconn. Okay. He did actually come through with that one. But now that Terry Go is up against him, but he stepped down as Foxconn chairman. So, but as you were noting before the show, he still has 9% ownership of.
A little over 9%, and he just got a 5 billion NT dividend from Hanhai.
Yeah, poor guy.
So when you get a 5 billion NT payoff from your company in the middle of a presidential primary, and your company's located in China, you probably will not do very well.
I think he still has over 1 million employees in China.
Something like that.
Yeah. And the only way, I mean, if you look recently at a lot of the highest flying business people in China have all been either thrown in jail or they've stepped down, retired.
So you got to wonder if that's a very interesting observation.
Yes. I think even Jack Ma stepped down, didn't he?
Yeah. I don't remember about Ma.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get back to Kaohsiung for a second here, because there's a lot of scuttlebutt out there in the media now that since Han took over, the Love River is becoming polluted again, and the city's treasury's been emptied, and all this kind of stuff. So I haven't seen credible sources saying that, but it's been. But we were talking about this before. But it doesn't look good for Han, and both of us think that he's crested, and now he's kind of stuck where he is, which means that when you're in a presidential candidacy, you're falling back if you're not moving forward.
Yeah.
He's not going to get much more than he has right now.
I don't think he might. If he wins the KMT primary, he'll get some generic KMT votes.
Right.
So he may pick up a little bit there, but he's been very slowly sinking in the polls. I mean, the days when he had like over 50% support are obviously long gone. Yeah, but he's got, he's got 20 some odd. He's been pretty consistent, it seems. Most of the polls keep him in the 20 some odd percent. He had this huge rally here in Taichung. But the organizers claimed 200,000. Yeah, 200K. But he got Apple Daily had a more credible estimate of 84,000 people. But that's still good. I mean, the fact of the matter is he's got a lot of people who are very deeply invested in him and this movement, and they're not giving up on him yet.
Not yet.
So he's got a pretty solid core of people right now who are not giving up on him. Now, if they eventually do, they'll probably, all run for the door pretty much around the same time. But right now, they're not making a dent on these hardcore supporters of his. They seem to be pretty solid, and that seems to be somewhere in the 20 to 25% of the country.
I think another thing we were talking about before was how if you look at this slate of candidates now, none of them look viable for 2024.
No.
And there's no one out there that you can point at and say, hey, that's 2024.
On the KMT side.
On the KMT side. Mm-hmm. One of the mistakes that we thought they made with Taichung was running Liu Xiaoyan. Mm-hmm. Because Johnny Jiang, her campaign manager, who lost the Taichung primary to her by like some infinitesimal amount, like
0 point something,
30 votes or something.
Yeah. Literally, the in the primary, it was like a couple dozen people.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he was there. He's young, he's energetic, he's well educated, he looks great on a poster. He's everything that you would want in a future candidate. And here he would be in Taichung building a power base as mayor. And he's the Fengyuan legislator. Mm-hmm. He's the ideal person to put in there if you want to groom a presidential candidate for 2024. But right now, look around the KMT. Who would you point at and say, oh yeah, this guy in 2024? Meanwhile, William Lai in the DPP injured himself, but he could probably recover.
He probably.
And someone standing in Taiwan is looking presidential. Mm-hmm. And who else could emerge in the next 4 years? So
Kuo-yu is the only one on the KMT side.
And the KMT side, Ho Yo-i, who's now the new Taipei city mayor, is probably the most... he hasn't been scarred by anything yet.
No, and he seems to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
And from what accounts that I've seen, he seems to be popular, seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Basically, him and Lim Min-sun in Nantou are the two sort of well-liked, seem to be doing a good job. But Lim Min-sun's coming out of Nantou, so he's,
It's a tiny little power base.
Yeah. So Ho Yo-i, frankly, to me right now looks like the future of the KMT. Terry Go is too thin-skinned. He's got a temper. He's very, very tied in with the Chinese Communist Party. And the only way that you can rise as high as he has in China is with their support. There's no way that he could be as successful as he has been in China without their say-so, without them allowing him to rise that high.
And another thing about him is that he doesn't bring anyone up with him.
No.
There's no Go faction in the party. There's no set of politicians associated with Go who will be plugged into positions. And this goes back to the Ma era when Ma Ying-jeou appointed a zillion academics to positions in the cabinet and didn't groom people to come up in the KMT. And those academics, when they were done with their cabinet jobs, they went right back to academia.
Back in 2000, there was a lot of talk of the demise of the KMT. Neither of us bothered at the time, I think.
I don't remember. That was so long ago. I'm seeing it all through an alcoholic haze.
But back then, and the reason why I didn't buy it then is because, at the time the PFP and James Song was really rattling their cage.
Oh, yeah.
And they very rapidly became a major force. But the thing is that the KMT then had a stable of decent candidates. At least, well-liked candidates. Ma Ying-jeou was still quite well-liked, had a good reputation. Jason Hu was a pretty,
solid, totally solid.
Totally solid.
Great politician.
They had a few of these guys.
How Long Bing was coming out.
Yeah. If they could get him back in the game, they had James Song. If they played their cards right, they probably could have brought him back in.
But who did they run for president? 2004. Lin Jian.
2000 and 2004. Yay. Oh man. That man is.
Anyway.
Yes. Out of touch seems to be almost too mild a statement for him. But yeah, so the KMT right now, Johnny Chang is a viable guy, but he's not very high profile because he's just a legislator. He's the whip.
He's receded into the background now.
Yeah, he's the party whip, so he's still he still has some profile.
Right.
And he's got some some profile. And Kuo-yu, he's the mayor of the largest.
Oh, we forgot Eric too. And you know why?
Oh, yes.
Because he hasn't been mentioned in the media.
Yes, that's right.
And when you're running in a presidential primary and you're not mentioned in the media,
Yep.
forget about it.
Exactly. Now this is very interesting. Is that there seems to be a breakdown on the Pan Blue media side over supporting Go.
Oh yeah, who are they going to promote?
And this is interesting because it seems to be that UDN is now much more critical of Han Kuo-yu
Really?
than before. At least not as friendly.
So all these deep blue guys who are getting the landline
they're more
poll,
Terry Go,
and they're reading UDN.
And so, meanwhile, Terry Go is complaining about the pro-China media, by which he means the China Times and that whole group. So, so basically, you've got, and of course, the China Times very much Han Kuo-yu supported. So there seems to be a split. And then now I've been seeing some of the talking heads on the TV talking about, well, which one does China more support, or is there actually splits in China itself over which of their two candidates which the one they prefer? And
they don't care.
Yeah.
So long as they're pro KMT, as long as they're KMT, they don't care.
Well, they don't want Wang Jin-pyng.
Well,
they don't
that's
want
probably
him.
true.
There was this rash of the candidates going to China not long ago, and Wang Jin-pyng also made the trek over there.
Sure, I remember that.
But he met some low-level functionaries in Fujian, and that was it.
Wow.
They did not roll out the carpet for him.
That's interesting, because he's Taiwanese.
He's Taiwanese.
Yeah.
Yes. So he basically, it was more of I think he went to his ancestral homeland, and there was some religious things,
I remember that now.
Something like this, yeah. But essentially, China was pretty much signaling, well, we're not going to throw him in jail or anything, but, they didn't like him very much.
All right, so what else do we want to talk about today? The businesses.
Yeah, businesses are moving back. The government set a target, I believe it was 300 billion, I think, and they blew right past it.
300 billion in subsidies for businesses moving back.
No, in investment.
Coming back from China.
And they blew by that in May, and they reset it up to like 800, I think, 800 billion. And they ran out of subsidies for all these, and so what they're doing is that they had to re-up on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
But basically, almost every single day, you see something in the news about another business coming back, or another two businesses or three, and a lot of them are coming back to Taichung. But here's another repeated refrain which I keep seeing in these articles. In a lot of these articles, a lot of them are saying, well, we probably would have come back anyway. It's not the Trump tariffs that are bringing them all back.
It's the worsening business climate.
It's the worsening business climate.
For Taiwanese businesses especially.
Yeah.
Which peaked several years ago.
Yeah. So a lot of the companies are no longer getting preferential treatment in China. They're not getting local businesses with better political connections, kind of muscling them out.
Yeah.
Labor costs have been rising for a long time. It's hard to fire people, but then they have really high turnover anyway because their staff leaves. So it's not a great place to do business anymore, except for the fact that they've got really well-developed supply chains.
Right.
And so that's the one thing that's keeping a lot of these businesses in China is these supply chains. They're having trouble rebuilding, particularly with complex electronics. You've got one company makes this little part, this company makes that little part, this company makes that little part. And it's hard to move the entire supply chain out. So there's certain businesses are not leaving yet because they can't. But if you make one or two or three products, you can kind of do it.
Right.
So so we're seeing a lot of these companies, or they're moving some or all their production back to here, or they're moving to other countries like Vietnam.
Do you think this will affect the election? Is some of this business going to show up before the election?
It could.
It could.
I mean, the thing is that only a small percentage of it of the promised return investment is going to happen this year.
Right.
So it's going to be a relatively small factor, I think, relative to there's a massive amount promised. Some of it will never materialize, because that's just the nature of it.
Right.
But a lot of it is for next year or the year after. So I think it's going to be a really big factor economically in a year or two. And it'll help a little bit by the end of the year.
Yeah.
It'll help a little bit by the end.
That will be good news for the DPP.
It will be, yeah.
Yeah. So we were also talking about transitional justice.
Yes.
What was the DPP saying about
Okay, well,
name changes and stuff?
Well, this is something that I noticed, and it was roughly 3 weeks ago. It was an article in the Taipei Times, and it was this, or Focus, one of the two. And there was one line in it, and they were talking about it's the Transitional Justice Committee, and they said that they're going to move on to the next phase in about a month, which would be a week or two from now, which they'll start tackling things like name changing, and those kinds of issues. Hopefully
after the election, right? Please? Please?
Good question. So now, of course, this is, memories of Chen Shui-bian, but, so what do they mean about this? What names are we talking about here? Chiang Kai-shek Memorial is obviously one thing that will be on their plate.
Sure.
That's a high-profile one. Will this include street names?
Street names will be a problem because the law is quite specific. If you want to change the name of a street, you have to get the approval of the majority of people who live on that street. They actually have to have some kind of election.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Jason Hu changed the name of Taichung Road to Taiwan Boulevard? He didn't actually have an election or a vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
He just had an opinion poll and then said, "Oh, this is valid," and then they changed it. They shoved that down people's throats. But bear in mind, when you change a street, because of the way Taiwan is administrated, when you change the street name here, people have to change their IDs.
Mm-hmm.
They have to change the land titles. They have to change all these pieces of paper, which they're really going to hate.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do this, you don't want to do it before the election.
No.
So the street names need changed. I mean, they are an obvious colonial relic of the KMT era. And then to have China stamped all over Taiwan street names is ridiculous. And all the names of the government businesses, the China Post, the China Airlines, all that stuff has to be changed. China has to be removed from that.
Well, China Airlines probably won't change their name.
No, are they? They're partly privatized now, aren't they?
Yeah. And I don't think that China would let them.
Possibly. Oh, that would be right, because they have to fly into China as Taiwan Airlines.
Right. So I think that China Airlines is probably not going to change their name.
I bet you're right.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, would China Steel change the name? I don't
China
know.
Petroleum?
China Petroleum.
That's hundreds of thousands of signs all over Taiwan that would have to be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mess.
Yeah. So, and I live on Zhongshan Road. So
which would definitely be changed.
Right, which would definitely be changed. Maybe less so than, say, Zhongzheng Road.
Well, that's true.
People seem to not
he's
hate
the
us.
founder of the ROC.
Yeah.
And this is technically the ROC.
Yeah.
So they might not mess with that. But Zhongzhen,
Yeah.
that's Chiang Kai-shek for sure.
Yeah. Zhongshan being Sun Yat-sen. He seems to be less disliked. I don't...
He died before they came here.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel the same. I don't feel like, particularly on the deep green side, you hear sort of a lot of anti-Chiang Kai-shek stuff. A lot of animosity toward him.
You mean Sun Yat? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But there's not a lot of animosity
To Sun Yat-sen.
No. Like, there's a lot of talk about, Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall, but there's not a lot of talk about the Sun Yat-sen Memorial.
Not yet. But I bet it's an
be.
obvious next target,
Yeah.
Once the public gets used to that, then... Well, so just to recap, big news of this week is no news. From Han, no positive news. Han Guoyu slowly, what's the word we want? He's like a huge wave breaking up on a lot of rocks.
He's lingering? Malingering?
Malingering. But anyway, Han is stuck, and he's not going to go much further up than where he is right now.
Yep.
And time is revealing him to be, giving everyone the feeling that he's not in control of events in Kaohsiung.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he's got that hard
that base,
course
yeah.
base, and so he's got that. And then we've got Terry Go. He doesn't seem to be rising much either.
No.
He seems to be sort of stuck.
So the stage is set for who? Duan-yi.
Duan-yi, yes.
And Wang Jin-pyng was interviewed in the Taipei Times this week, and
that was interesting.
That was the first question that was asked.
Yep.
That's the first question the interviewer asked him. Is Wang Jin-pyng going to jump in? Is Wang Jin-pyng going to jump in? Sorry. Is Duan-yi going to jump in? And Wang said, "What a beautiful day it is. And wouldn't it be great if we could all have pizza?" Wang Jin-pyng, he asked a question, and then he said an answer. "We all must respect Duan-yi."
Yes. Yeah. Wang Jin-pyng, the funny thing is when he says something specific, pay attention, because he so rarely does say anything specific.
He didn't say anything specific in this interview, except he left open the possibility of an independent run.
Yes,
he
refused. He refused to rule it out.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing, and this isn't the first time I've seen him say this. He reiterated it in this article, but it's also, he said it a couple of times before. He said that who is leading in the polls is not necessarily the strongest candidate.
And he means Han Kuo-yu.
Yes. And so what's interesting about that comment is, and he actually makes a fairly good point. He says, Han Kuo-yu last time around was way, way, way back in the polls in the beginning.
Right.
And he went on to win by a huge margin.
Yes.
Ke, same thing.
Yeah.
So his point is kind of valid in that, opinion polling this far out doesn't necessarily help you pick the strongest candidate. Now, I just don't see him being that popular, though.
No. Well, we were saying that he's not a person who's greatly loved, and he's not a person who's greatly disliked.
Right.
And he's the longtime leader of the unofficial leader of Taiwanese within the KMT.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps saying the point, the primary is not fair. It's
Right.
a landline primary, a poll, and it's going to pick it's going to be skewed to older deep blues, who are the kind of people who do not like Wang Jin-pyng.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens when the primary closes and the next day and Wang is not anywhere near the top.
And he's still campaigning.
Yeah.
He's still campaigning. That's the amazing thing, is he's showing up, these rallies. He's still going out there and working on building his support base. So yeah, I think he's in it.
Yep.
He's going to be, or he wants to be the party chairman.
He did. I think he mentioned that in the interview.
Yeah. I think he's gunning for either presidency, KMT party chairmanship, or both.
Yeah.
That's what he's after.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll stay with us as we track the KMT primary for the next few weeks, because it's going to be lots of fun.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Thanks for tuning in today.